Friends, colleagues, fellow citizens of this bewildering age, we are gathered here not to lament a passing trend, but to diagnose a pandemic. Not a pandemic of the body, but of the mind. Not of a virus, but of a vacuum. I speak of the terrifying exponential velocity with which confusion, falsehood, and intellectual surrender are spreading through our societies. This is not merely stupidity. That word is too kind, too passive, too suggestive of a natural state. What we are witnessing is something more active, more engineered, and far more sinister. It is an epistemological crisis, a systematic breakdown in our very ability to agree on what is true, how we know it, and what constitutes reason itself. This crisis does not spread like a weed growing wild. It spreads like a crop meticulously planted, fertilized, and harvested. And we must ask, who are the farmers? Who tills this fertile soil of anxiety and ignorance? And for what purpose do they reap this bitter harvest? Let us first define our terms. The stupidity I refer to is not a lack of innate intelligence. It is the active avoidance of critical thought, the willing suspension of disbelief in favor of tribal affirmation. It is the substitution of cheap certainty for expensive doubt. It is the victory of the feeling true over the being true. This mindset spreads not because people are inherently foolish, but because powerful vectors now propagate at the speed of light, amplified by algorithms that value engagement over enlightenment, outrage over understanding. The mechanisms, the cascade. How does this happen? The architecture is now clear. First, the digital epistemological bomb. Social media platforms built on advertising revenue are engagement engines. They learned a fundamental, corrosive truth. Content that triggers primal emotions, fear, anger, tribal loyalty, moral outrage travels faster and sticks longer than complex, nuanced truth. The algorithm does not distinguish between fact and fiction. It measures virality. Thus, a compelling lie dressed in the garb of a secret they don't want you to know will always outrun a dull, documented fact. Our public square has been redesigned as a carnival funhouse of distorting mirrors, and we are told to find our reflection in it. Second, the weaponization of language and emotion. Complex issues are reduced to memes, slogans, and demonizing labels. Debate is replaced with dehumanization. You are not just wrong, you are evil. This short-circuits reason. When your opponent is not just mistaken but malevolent, why listen? Why consider evidence? This emotional hijacking creates perfect, self-contained cognitive bunkers. Data becomes deep state propaganda. Expertise becomes elitist conspiracy. A shared reality fractures into a million subjective, emotionally defined realities. Third, the exploitation of genuine grievance. Deindustrialization, economic precarity, cultural displacement, and political corruption are real wounds. Into these wounds, the agents of confusion pour not the salt of solution, but the acid of scapegoating. The cause of your pain is not a complex global system, they whisper, but that group, that institution, that conspiracy. This offers a terrifyingly simple answer. A villain, a narrative, a tribe to belong to. It transforms legitimate anger into a directed, manipulable rage against fabricated phantoms. So, who benefits? Cui bono? This is not an accident, it is a tool. And tools have users. 1. The authoritarian and the demagogue. This is the most direct beneficiary. A confused populace is a controllable populace. When people cannot discern truth, they will follow the loudest voice, the strongest promise, the simplest story. The demagogue thrives in the fog. He creates it. By constantly bombarding the public with contradictory claims, conspiratorial narratives, and attacks on all traditional sources of authority, media, judiciary, science, he creates a state of perpetual uncertainty. In that void, he positions himself as the sole arbiter of truth. Believe only me. What you see isn't happening. This is the enemy. This is the oldest playbook. Create a crisis of reality, then offer yourself as the solution. A mass unable to think critically is putty in the hands of the would-be autocrat. They trade the burdens of freedom for the comfort of dogma. 2. The predatory capitalist. While the demagogue seeks power, another beneficiary seeks profit from the same cognitive rubble. A distracted, emotionally volatile, and intellectually disoriented consumer is the ideal consumer. They are more susceptible to advertising that sells not product, but identities and fears. They are less likely to question exploitative business practices, environmental degradation, or grotesque wealth inequality is consumed by cultural phantoms. Furthermore, the very platforms that spread the confusion profit directly from the engagement it generates. More clicks, more rage, more addiction, more data to sell. Your attention is the commodity. Your indignation is the engine. This is a form of cognitive strip mining, where the natural resources of public reason and trust are extracted to exhaustion for private gain. 3. The foreign adversary, the chaos agent. For a nation-state adversary, a rival's greatest weakness is not military but social cohesion. The goal is not conquest but paralysis. By seeding and amplifying divisive narratives, extremist content, and blatant falsehoods within a target's society, they can weaponize stupidity. They turn citizens against each other, erode trust in institutions, and make coherent national action impossible. Why fight an army when you can disable the mind of a nation? A society busy burning its own house down with conspiracy and infighting poses no threat abroad. It becomes weak, insecure, and inward-looking. The beneficiaries here are those who seek a weaker, more fragmented geopolitical opponent. 4. The grifter and the charlatan. In the murky swamps of this new epistemology, a whole ecosystem of parasites thrives. The conspiracy peddler selling truth in monthly subscriptions, the pseudo-expert pushing miracle cures for engineered fears, the hate-for-profit commentator monetizing outrage. They build empires on the bedrock of their followers' alienation. They don't necessarily seek state power. They seek influence, fame, and wealth within their niche. They benefit from ensuring their audience remains perpetually scared, perpetually angry, and perpetually distrustful of any information that does not come from them. They are merchants of the crisis, selling shovels in a gold rush for meaning that themselves triggered. For what purpose? The grand strategy. These beneficiaries, though sometimes at odds, are united in a common project: the dismantling of a shared, evidence-based reality. They use this engineered stupidity for power consolidation, to replace democratic deliberation with authoritarian diktat, substituting the messy noise of debate with the clean, clear line of party or leader. Profit maximization, to create a populace that is a docile consumer, a data point, and an addict, all while being told they are a rebel. Social fragmentation, to prevent collective action. A class that cannot agree on what a fact is can never unite to challenge economic injustice. They will be too busy fighting each other over cultural specters. Legitimization of the illegitimate, to create a world where truth is defined by power and tribal loyalty, thus allowing any action, no matter how corrupt or cruel, to be justified within the echo chamber. The antidote, a call for intellectual courage. This is a dark portrait, but the diagnosis is the first step to a cure. We cannot algorithm our way out of a problem created by algorithms. We cannot fact-check a fire hose of falsehoods. The solution must be deeper, slower, and profoundly human. We must rebuild epistemological resilience. This begins with a personal vow to value integrity over victory, to seek understanding before refutation, to embrace complexity and tolerate the discomfort of not knowing. We must teach our children and reteach ourselves, not what to think, but how to think. Critical thinking, media literacy, logic, and intellectual humility must become the core curriculum of citizenship. We must demand ethical architecture from our digital spaces. Algorithms must be made accountable, not as arbiters of truth, but as promoters of civility and demoters of demonstrable falsehood. This is not censorship. It is the hygiene of the public square. We must reinvest in institutions dedicated to truth-seeking, journalism, science, education, libraries. Not as perfect, but as processes. The scientific method, peer review, journalistic sourcing. These are slow, frustrating, and corrigible. But they are the best tools we have ever devised for approaching truth. We abandon them at our existential peril. Finally, we must reconnect across the fabricated divides. Engage with empathy. Recognize that the person falling for a conspiracy is often acting from a place of real pain and a stolen sense of agency. Combat the lie, but understand the longing beneath it. The spread of this intellectual disease is fast, But the immune response of a conscious society can be faster. We are not helpless. We choose what we amplify. We choose what we de-dignify with our attention. We choose whether to be mere nodes in a network of outrage or sentinel cells of reason. The beneficiaries of confusion are counting on our exhaustion. They are betting we will choose the quiet of dogma over the noisy, exhausting work of democracy and discernment. Let us prove them wrong. Let us be the slow, deliberate thinking, connecting countertide. Let us build dikes of data, walls of wisdom, and bridges of patient understanding. For in the final analysis, the battle against this engineered stupidity is nothing less than the battle for the soul of our civilization. Between those who would build a world on knowledge, compassion, and shared reality, and those who would profit from the ruins of a world built on none of those things. Let us choose, with clear eyes and steadfast hearts, to build. Thank you.